Good evening and salutations, my GH fans. I feel that Marco kind of overreacted with Natalya in a sense. So Marco and Lucas are hanging out at the pool, and Natalya sees both of them and approaches them. And Marco introduced Lucas to Natalya and everything like that. And Natalya's like, can I have a word with my son for a minute? So he leaves, and Marcus is like, that was pretty rude. Why'd you sit there and dismiss him like that? And Natalya's like, I need to sit there and get a hold of Blaze or Allison because she's not seeming to return my calls, and she clearly seems like she needs help with this whole tour thing. And if you could sit there and reach out, that would definitely help out. He pretty much unrolls on her, right? He brings up all this stuff from the past that she didn't change, and that she's still being overbearing and everything like that. And he pretty much kind of tells her to kick rocks. And part of me was just like, where did this all come from? Like, I don't think that what she did was like, she didn't sit there and say, hey, listen, why don't you sit there and just leave or whatever, just be gone or something like that. All she sat there and said was, could I sit there and talk to you alone for a hot minute? Because this is family business. I didn't think it was really necessary for him to sit there and unload like that. I think that he just still has resentment from her about her past and he's not letting it go. Anyway, she's in tears and she's sitting there just kind of drinking, looking all distraught and everything. And Sonny sees her and he's like, hey, why don't you come over here? Let's sit there and have a little quick talk. So they talk. And he pretty much gives her advice like, you're going to have to just kind of back off a little bit and let them come to you. I've been there with Michael and it takes some time, but you'll get past it. He's really nice and he's really sweet to her and she thanks him. Unfortunately, he don't even know that she sold him out with the whole heart thing, but it's not here or there because after he leaves to go back to finish his meeting, she is still drinking and she calls Sitwell and she's like, listen, I need your help. You owe me. And she goes to her car. I don't know if she got pulled over or if she was just walking into her car, but she gets pulled over by a cop, takes a breathalyzer, and is like, yeah, you can't be driving or whatever. And she kind of gets into this bit of a temper tantrum, and it just reminds me of the whole Haley thing, specifically when, he puts her in cuffs, and she's all like, oh, I have a white dress on, and I want you to dirty it, and da 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 da. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, man, that sounds so familiar. Still stand by the fact that she deserved more time than what she got, but just let that go for now. So yeah, Sonny was sitting there having a meeting with Maxie, and he pretty much wanted, Sitwell to be gone. And Maxie was like, I'm not trying to be, a bitch or anything like that, but we need Sitwell more than we need you because of the whole Zenkai thing. And although she knows about his history, allegedly, she's also like, I got a house and I got bills to pay and I got kids. So we can't we can't like lose him. Right now, he's the only one that's, in game, we could sit there and buy his stuff, so we can't really do anything. So the meeting ultimately goes nowhere. But, Sonny sits there and says just watch your back because he didn't just sit there and pick out deception just because, it's a good business opportunity. He probably did it because of me. The world revolves around him. It doesn't even really matter because, Sigwa has a mineral that they need and you don't. So it's not really much you can do at this point. So this court case still going on, and Rick and both um, Diane sit there and question her and of course examine her and everything. And at this point, she starts to go into labor, and Willow kind of steps up. See, the paramedics can't sit there and get there. Well, first of all, her water ain't broke. So this baby is coming now. So they can't really do too much of anything. And the paramedics can't sit there and get in because there's a protest that's going outside about the whole Measure C thing. So Willow decides to sit there and lend a hand, delivers the baby. It's a girl, by the way. And, Michael thanks her. Outside, you have, we find out, well, it's confirmed when Nina kind of gets on Rick's ass about what the hell was you doing? Like, this wasn't part of the plan. Like, yo, I gave you that information. Well, honestly, to tell you the truth, why the hell did you give him that information if he wasn't going to use it? If you didn't want him to use it, then why did you give him that information? And that's when Carly was like, why would you do something like that? Y'all supposed to be friends or whatever. Like, I feel like it's more than friends. I feel like it's more of a mother-daughter kind of relationship. But her point still does stand. Like, why would you sit there and do that for? They're going back and forth. And Drew kind of gets in her face, talking about, oh, well, Michael's going to lose the kids, and this, that, and third. And Carly's like, just to let you know, you two are not on the same page. And she pretty much kind of sells out Nina by Snither saying that she hired Jacinda to, drug you and everything else to make you look bad. Not really too much surprise there, but, it was kind of a nice moment to sit there and say. Um, Jason gets called by Anna to investigate Dalton and says that Jocelyn is not there working with Dalton for the summer and that the work that he's doing is kind of sketchy and Emma seems like she's going to be involved and everything like that. And long story short, Jason agrees. So, Liz and Lucky. Well, Liz told Lucky no. But she told him no because ultimately, right? Lucky's not the type of person that sits still for too long. And like Laura, she wants to sit there and settle down. She has her kids, she has her life, and stuff like that. She has friends, she has a career. And at first, Lucky tries to be like, no, we can work it out. I can stay for you. Until Liz's like, can we just be real for a minute? So then Lucky asks her to just pick up her stuff and just kind of, travel with him. And Liz is like, what about, not Rocco, what about Aiden? He's finishing up school, he has friends, he's going to be applying to college, and he's not used to that life of just moving from place to place. Lucky was kind of born doing that. He's been in Port Charles all his life. So he's not ready for that, just pack up and just move in a new city every time he gets bored. Lucky ultimately realizes that, love is not enough, and he decides he's going to leave Port Charles. His only hang up is how is he going to sit there and break the news to Aiden? Which, honestly, to tell you the truth, Aiden kind of already calls out his number. Like, he knows that his dad is not the stay kind of guy, you and ultimately, I think that's going to be the end of his run. Which, when you really think about it, when you add everything up, and the fact that Lucky was originally kind of brung back to help Lulu, and he couldn't even do that, what's the point of his character being on the show? I mean, this isn't the same Lucky. This is a retcon Lucky. So this Lucky is Lucky that's like Luke. When I was watching the show, Lucky wanted to not be like Luke. Lucky wants to sit there and settle down and have roots and everything like that. And to be honest, the only reason why he kind of left at that point was because he just got tired of Port Charles. He got tired of Liz. He felt like there wasn't really much for him there. But he was never the pick up and go kind of guy. But now he is. So ultimately, this whole little romance that he was sitting there having with Liz was just kind of pointless. I mean, it was there to appease the Lucky and Liz fans, but like, you changed Lucky into a person that the fans didn't really recognize. I don't know. Ultimately, I find it to be a kind of a flop, but y'all let me know in the comment section. Jocelyn is not there giving Jack an update on the fact that Jen Sitwell is working with Dalton, that he's been bankrolling him in whatever sort of venture that he has going on. And, they talk about Anna, how she could sit there and kind of screw up the whole thing. And just, long story short, Jack is pretty much just telling Jocelyn to just not let Anna catch on to her, because then it's just going to complicate things any further, and say, don't worry about dealing with Anna. I will take care of her. And last is the scene with Hat Daddy, Trina, Kai, Portia, and Curtis. So Hat Daddy gets to sit there and know Kai seems like a good guy, but he is worried about his admiration when it comes towards Drew. Because after they talk, Curtis and Hat Daddy are talking, and they're just like, he doesn't know Drew like we do. And, it was just nice to sit there and see him for a little bit. He didn't, it was good to see. I would sit there and say that much. But the important part of this whole thing is that Portia has had enough of Curtis and his snide comments. And there's a point where towards the end of the dinner, Curtis says some slick shit. And Portia's like, all right, that's enough. Because right now they're sleeping in separate rooms and just the tension and everything like that. And Curtis has the audacity to sit there and say, well, you're just going to have to sit there and deal with it until we figure out how to deal with Drew. Now, the idea of dealing with Drew is to find Jacinda, pay her off, and, have her sit there and say to, like, Will and everyone that Drew voluntarily took those drugs and paid her for sex. Kai is, I guess, walking around or whatever. I think he went to go get Hat Daddy a drink, and he overheard them talking. I don't know how much of it he heard, but it's going to put him in a very compromising position. Because right now, he's still feeling gratitude towards Drew and, paying for the surgery and everything. But now he finds out that Curtis is trying to do some undermining stuff to, make Drew look bad. So, does he sit there and tell Drew? Or does he sit there and look out for Curtis because of Trina? Again, it really depends on how much he actually heard. Um, After um, Marcos tell Natalya to kick rocks, Lucas kind of came back and kind of gave, him some advice on how he dealt with Bobby and, everything like that. Um, how there was tension and stuff like that, but eventually they wound up working it out. Basically, they're saying if we can do it, then y'all can sit there and find a way to work it out as well. Also, Maxie was sitting there talking to Lucas for a hot minute, didn't really go anywhere, but they talked for a little bit. I feel like that's ultimately about it. I wound up doing this before. I didn't like how it came out. I think I was kind of rushing a little bit because I still want to do the live stream. But yeah, I don't like rushing my reviews. So, I don't know. I don't know how long this is going to sit there and take for this to come out, for me to charge up my laptop, and what's it? I don't know if I'm going to be able to do a live stream anyway, because I do got to wake up early in the morning. And so, also, I still got Ball and the Beautiful to do. I got a lot going on. We'll see. If I don't, I'll just wind up doing it tomorrow. But, check the community tab, and we'll go from there.